Hello, amazing you. Thanks for joining me. Welcome back to Impact Marketers, the number one show for network marketers by network marketers. I am your host, Chrysalette Vassell. Today, I have something super extra special because today's guest is someone who has been in the network marketing industry for over 4 decades. You heard me right. Over 4 decades. At this point, she stands as number 5 in one of the top network marketing companies, one of the biggest network marketing companies in the entire world, right? She has had years of experience, so you know today is going to be good. She's going to be leaving us with just so much information, so much insights into how she has been able to create this super massive and successful network marketing business. You need to go ahead, grab your pen, grab your paper, because you're going to need to grab what she's going to be dishing out today. Let's go and jump right into it. Come on, let's go. First, Lisa, I want to utterly thank you. Guys, backstory, I have to let you guys in on what happened. So Lisa and I connected. We got this whole interview done. And then, unfortunately, my Wi-Fi was just doing a whole mess, right? It was just doing a whole lot of stuff. And unfortunately, because of the quality, I did not want to share that poor quality. And so I reached out to Lisa and like, Lisa, please, your interview was so impactful. Can you redo this thing? And it was so amazing. I didn't know what to expect. And she actually said yes. And that is what I love about persons who are just servers. She said yes to coming on back in here and just pouring it all over again, right? And so I'm utterly grateful, Lisa, that you didn't just spare one slot for us, but you spared 2. And we're hoping that this one will even be better than the first one. Because the first one,
there you go.
The 4, trust me. So Lisa, I don't want to be chattering because I know you just have so much to pour into us. And so I'm just going to turn it all over to you.
Oh, don't do that. You got to start talking about something so I'll know what to talk about.
Certainly. So first, tell us about your journey, how you got started in the network marketing industry, and just walk us through how the journey has unfolded for you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. That's an awesome place to start. Oh, okay. So actually, and I'll mention the company I do, but don't think that I think it's the only opportunity in the world. Absolutely not. This industry is fabulous, and you could find a company that sells absolutely anything that you're interested in. I happened to sign up when I was 18 years old. I moved to Guam because I got married at 18 because evidently I'm an idiot. And right. At least I admit it, right? But anyway, so I got over there. I'm a young Navy wife. And it's funny because originally the school, I quit high school, which was also dumb. And the school wanted to transfer me over there. So then I would be a Navy wife still in high school. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. So I took my GED and I got out of school. Yes, I have regrets about that. Don't do it, kids. Don't do it. No. So anyway, I get over there and all the wives are older than I am, of course. And there weren't a lot of wives. There were a lot of wives that weren't with their husbands. So it was a lot of, I was there in the housing area by myself. So I did volunteer to be like in the wives club for the troop we were in. And it was mostly older women, but I thought, well, at least I'll get to know them. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them were not working jobs. And I was used to working since I was probably 12. I worked picking tobacco. I worked at a restaurant as a waitress. I worked making sundaes at a Sunday place. So I wanted my own money. And they were all doing stuff like home parties, like Tupperware and Prince's House and painting parties. And they were doing stuff. And the thing I didn't see anybody doing was Avon. And I remember buying Avon from one of my friends in school. And also the lady used to come to the house and sit with my mother and have coffee, and she used to buy Avon. So I thought, well, you know what? Hey, that'd be kind of good. I'll do something nobody else is doing. So I wrote to the company in the United States, and they said, send me $30 and we'll send you a kit. And I was in business. That's how I got in. They only had a direct sales option back then. But I sold, and I sold for the 2.5 years I was on Guam over there, and did pretty well, actually. But when I moved, I left and moved to the States. My first husband, yes, I have to number them. Don't judge me. My first husband liked to dock his ship at more than one port, so I had to cut his anchor adrift. And when I moved back home, there was no way I was moving to my folks' house so that I could hear, I told you so, a zillion times. So I just picked a place on the map. I swear to you, I picked it, went there, and just toughed it out. And I sold Avon there too, because I thought, well, I could make some money. Never did it dawn on me that I could do this full time. Never. It's not like I thought of it and then said, oh, no, that won't work. I didn't even think of it. I'd never even thought of it because I never met anybody that was doing it for a full-time job. So I always was doing something else. And usually it was secretary or cashier or assorted other waitressing jobs, stuff like that. And so I was in Mississippi for a couple years, and then I went to South Carolina for a couple years. I think my worst job, and I did Avon the whole time, my worst job was I worked third shift at a convenience store in Charleston, South Carolina. And right, that has a whole thing, right? A whole thing by itself. But at that particular point in my life, I couldn't even afford to get electric. It wouldn't be as bad, except the hot water heater in the bathroom was electric, and there was no window, so I'm taking cold showers in the dark. But I moved up to New Hampshire, and all of these moves, by the way, had something to do with a man. Don't ask. And right. So when I moved up here, I got married again, and so that was husband number 2, and I got a secretary's job. And how I even got that, I was doing Avon the whole time. I got the secretary's job because I thought to myself, I just got done with that third shift job that was so bad. And I thought, you know what, I'm miles away from there. It was Charleston. This was New Hampshire. No one knows me here. I'm just going to be a secretary. I'm not going to go. I'm going to have my bar up here. I'm not going to do the convenience store. I'm just not even going to be that person. I'm just going to go. So the first job I went for, I actually got, and I went in there and I was a secretary. And I got a secretary job for a corporate guy. And I hadn't had that level of secretary job even. And it was hilarious because at the convenience store job, I was getting, $3.60 an hour, if that. I think that was $3.35. And then I had extra for being third shift, but I was getting nothing. I mean, $6,000 a year, I think it was. And at the secretary job, the boss, they hadn't put what the salary was. And he called me to offer me the job. And he said, I know it's not that much, but we're offering 15 and benefits and retirement and all this stuff, dental and medical. And he didn't realize that I was about dying. I didn't know if he meant $15 an hour or it was $15,000 a year. well, that's like 3 times what I was getting the other place, and I was getting no benefits. So, I mean, I had to stop myself from going, yes, yeah, yeah. You know, I tried to act like it wasn't the best thing that ever happened to me, but it was the best thing. I thought I'd won the lottery. Now, the whole time I'm selling Avon, and I loved that job, by the way, that I had that job for 2.5 years. And by the time that job ended, I was earning $20,000 a year. And I was paying all my bills, and I had a car, and it was awesome. I thought that was just the highlight of my life right there. And then that was in 1987. And so long ago now, no one remembers, but there was a big recession. And that company, the department I worked in, was product development. And they did away with the department. So that was the first time I actually saw men cry because those guys were getting paid a lot more money than I was getting paid. I was just a secretary. They were getting 6 figures, and a couple of them were actually crying. So I came home, and husband number 2, I was like snot bubble crying. I mean, you know, it's bad when you're snot bubble crying. I was hysterical because I'm thinking, what are we going to do? Because husband number 2 is a great guy, but he never wanted to be a money earner, really. He earned some if he wanted some, but he never was carrying the bills. So I was like, I got to get something going right away. And I was like crying and carrying on. And he says to me, why don't you do more with that Avon thing you've been playing with? And I'm like, all right. I'm like, yeah, let's do that. I sarcastically said, because I thought, I don't even know anybody doing full-time Avon. And I got to earn at least 20 grand here to replace the money I was making. And I said to him, in my district, I've been to the meetings, the like state meetings, there isn't even anybody selling 20 grand, not necessarily earning 20 grand. Yeah. They can't even sell that much. And there's a difference between how much you sell, how much you get. And he said, just because they're not doing it, why does that mean you can't do it? And I went, oh. And then I thought to myself, well, God, he knows me. He must think I can do this. I actually took his belief as being belief. You know what I mean? And I didn't have that belief in myself, but I thought, well, he thinks I can do it. I think I'll give it a whirl. So I actually thought, I'm just going to dive in and get this done. He obviously thinks it can be done by me. Yes. So I'm going to do it. And I actually was able to replace that secretary's pay. It took me a couple of years, and it was a slow build, but I did that in a couple of years. And then, of course, a little bit later, they came out with their network marketing program, and there's no way I would have gotten paid that because I've earned a lot of money with that. But he heard me tell somebody that story on a phone call a couple of years after it happened, and I hung up, and he says to me, "You don't go around telling people that, do you?" And I'm like, I was like, believe it or not, that small thing that you said to me made me believe enough that I was able to do this business. And by then I was already getting trips and stuff by the time he said something. He said, oh, I didn't believe in you back then. He said, I never thought you'd do anything with it. He says, I only said that stuff so you'd stop crying. Oh, God. And I'm like, sometimes you just need to lie to me. You know what I mean? Just look me straight in the eyes and lie. But luckily, by the time he said that, I already believed in myself. So I think that's the one thing I wish that I could give other people is the belief in their self. Right. Because so many people want validation from someone else that they can get the job done. Yes. And you don't need it. You believe in yourself, because if you don't stop, there's actually no one that couldn't do it if you just never stopped trying new things and going for it. Everybody has the ability to do it, in my opinion. Right. Sticking with it. But no, the network marketing part didn't start till that was 92. And the funny part is I was already selling a lot, and I had already sold it. They call it an Avon President's Council. Back then it was 75,000 personally in a year. And that's a lot of lipstick for being out in rural New Hampshire. So I was hustling, there's no doubt.
Really hustling.
Right. And I was doing the recruiting thing, but they had a program just called sponsorship where you got a little percentage on just the person you found. As long as you're in. And I was earning a couple $100 a month doing that. But then when they came out with the network marketing program, they call it leadership. I didn't want to do it. I thought it was like, oh God, this is going to wreck the company. I was against it. I was not going to do it. And it was so funny because they gave you a year to switch. And then they originally said we could stay in sponsorship and that would keep going. And I was not going to switch. I was going to stay. And then, of course, they decided they weren't going to keep the old one. So if you didn't switch, you were just out. So there was a window of opportunity where you could roll your people from the old one into leadership. And I actually waited so long past the deadline that I had to get special permission to roll my people in, and they did it. And I begrudgingly, I did not want to switch. I know that the thing that absolutely changed my life, I did not want to do. They dragged me down the road. And once I got in though, once I had that decision made that I had to do it, I went, you know what, if I'm going to do this, I'm not just going to play around and do this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot for the top of the pay plan. And I don't mean just shoot for it. And if I don't get it, oh, well, I'm going to shoot for it in a way that I'm going to make the top of the pay plan before I decide whether this is worth it or not.
Right.
I'm just going to just all out go for, and their titles were called Senior Executive Unit Leader at the time. So I thought I'm just going to make senior before I'm even going to have any thought to whether this is worth it or not. Because if I don't do that, I'm going to keep wanting to quit and I'm going to just be sidetracked and never make it. So it took me 15 months to make senior. And I mean, I was driving everybody bananas with this because it's all I talked about. You had to have certain people in certain spots, on your tree and whatever. And I drew all this tree over and over every day and put my people in and talked to them and had meetings. And all of this was before the internet and all that. So we were talking and hustling and the whole thing was about senior. And I'm driving a Yugo eating macaroni in my trailer. And the big draw for me at the beginning was the car allowance. They gave a car allowance that you got to, I didn't realize at the time, I thought like they gave you a car, but you get a car allowance. So you still had to save up to get the car, but still there's no downside to that. Yes. So I had a van. Matter of fact, I've got it still, but I don't know where it is. It's probably on my shelf behind me, but a little toy van. That's what I was going to get with my car allowance. And I painted it white with whiteout from my desk. And I wrote Avon little with marker on it. And I carried it around with me everywhere. And then people would ask me about it. And I'd be like, well, I'm building a team. And if I get the team to be this size, and I showed them my little map with the pictures of the planets on it. And I said, I get a car allowance and I won't have to drive. You won't have to keep helping me push start my Yugo because my customers' husbands have helped me push start the Yugo. Yeah. So it was funny. And then when I did make it, I found out that I was the first one to make it in the Northeast, the whole side of the country. And I didn't know that. And I'm glad a lot of this stuff worked out really well. Because if I had known that I was the only one, I'm not sure. I would have probably been thinking, oh, there's no seniors yet? Well, that's not even doable. But see, I didn't know. I thought there were a bunch of seniors. So I'm like, oh, good. Once I make senior, I'll get to meet the other seniors. That's what I was thinking. Right. And the first year I got it, there were 3 in the country. And the other 2 were on the other side of the country. I didn't get to meet them it was a couple years after that. So it was the lone person up here just working it. And once I made senior and I got more money, I always invested a lot back in. And the reason that I believe that would work, that strategy, is because of the way it worked. Because right now I live in a decent sized house with a nice running car, and I go on vacations all the time. I've got everything that I want. And even when the economy goes bad, which it does on a regular cycle, I have not had a big giant problem because I kept investing way early on.
Right.
And I was earning six figures still living in the trailer park for years. And nobody knew because I invested a lot of it back in. And that, I think that's the part that's really hard to do too.
Yeah.
Is people think that you should upgrade your life right away. And it's hard not to do that, but it's necessary to put a lot back in. So, but that was my introduction to network marketing.
All right. So guys, woo, a lot of pieces there. And I'm here listening like, you know, this is my first time hearing the story because I'm still drawn into it. There's so many pieces to just discuss because the power of, you had affirmation, video, vision board and everything pretty much in there. Not vision board in the sense where you had it on a board or whatever, but you had that little car and you were taking this thing around. You were constantly drawing what your team needed to look like. And so you were constantly implanting those ideas into the subconscious. So you could see the finished product even before it got finished. And that is so powerful, right? A lot of us don't understand just how powerful the mind is. And you were literally obsessing.
No, I drove everybody crazy.
Yeah, right? And we literally have to get to that point where we really, really want this thing just so bad, right? I think it was Eric Thomas who said, if you have to want something bad enough, right? Where you feel like, it just feels like it's the only thing. It's the only thing that matters.
You know what I kept thinking? That there's a quote from Jim Rowan. He's like, I'm going to climb this mountain. That's my mountain. You're either going to see me on the top waving to you or dead on the side from trying because that is my mountain. Yeah. And to me, senior executive unit leader was my mountain. I was taking that. And there was just no way that wasn't going to happen. That just wasn't a possibility that I wasn't going to do it. Amazing. So, and you know, it's funny because I'm glad that I didn't think it through more because people all around me were saying stuff. And instead of me thinking that it was a jab, which it actually was, I thought they were talking about the math of it. So if somebody said, you know, only 5% of the people make it to the top of the pay plan in network marketing. And I went, oh, okay. So I'm thinking, well, I need to find out what they're doing so that I know what I'm shooting for about volume and stuff. I wasn't thinking that they meant, you're not going to make it in the 5%. Are you insane? But I didn't even take that from what they said. So I was just merrily, naively going on my way. And it's a lucky thing because I could get discouraged enough on my own without them keeping it on me. And I wasn't understanding that they were being negative or insulting me. I wasn't taking it that way. I was like, well, you know what I mean? And it's funny because I'm currently number 5 in Avon in the United States, and I've been in the top 10 for 2 decades now.
Wow!
And once I got there, I'm like, I'm not. You know what I mean? You're gonna have to wedge me out with something, but it's not gonna be fun for you because and I think that's the beauty of it. Once you get some momentum going. You know what I mean? You feel like that person, like I feel like it's not called senior anymore, but a senior executive. That's who I am. Yeah. So I work like I'm a senior executive. I make sure that every day, if I'm going to expect to get that kind of money, I've got to bring that kind of value to the table.
Right.
that's just the way it goes.
Absolutely. There's a point that you mentioned that I want to bring home as well, because this really impacted me. When you shared that you were making six figures, I believe when you shared this with me initially, for well over about 7 years. And you stayed in the trailer park, right? Yeah. All of those 7 years, right? You mentioned that you would be flying out to hotels for the different meetings.
I was living a double life. Yeah. So we're staying at places like, I remember one trip we stayed at the Waldorf Astoria in New York City. I was at a meeting for senior executives. And of course, I'm going to this meeting, and I got my own room. In the room, it was a suite. I had a suite at the Waldorf Astoria. I come home to my, but then I think I had the Hyundai. But I come home and I couldn't get the car started. And that particular car, there was something wrong with the handle, and the window kept falling in the door. And I had to keep having my husband undo the door to take the window out. But I was living like a double life. You know, I get to go to all these fancy places and eat fancy food. And then I'd come home to not fancy, the opposite of fancy. But I had to be all right with that, because I knew there would be a point where it would be closer together, at least.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's still, I get to go to some really, really nice places, but I come home to a nicer house and stuff.
That really impacted me. That really impacted me in a very big way. To be so invested in the future. It's almost like you were sure about the outcome of the future, and you were just plugging into that. And you were not just so focused on the right now.
I mean, and I convinced myself, this sounds weird, but when I was living in the trailer park, I convinced myself that, like, you know, the life we live is like a kaleidoscope, and it keeps getting, I don't know what happened, but it keeps getting changed and everything's different. I convinced myself that I was there by mistake. That wasn't right. I'm supposed to be having this nice house and car and stuff, and I better prepare myself for that future, because my future was not to spend the next 50 years in a single wide. I mean, there's nothing wrong with trailers and trailer parks, but I did not grow up as a little girl going, "Ooh, I hope I get to live in a trailer park." You know what I mean? So I want to have a big, giant, juicy life where I go traveling and fly places and see people and meet people. Right. And, you know, that's what I've always wanted. And I just, you know what I mean? I wanted to tell my future self that I just got to hold on to that, because this is not what I was meant for. Right. And I said that to myself all the time down there. It was weird, because that's ended up being why husband number 2 had to hit the road, or I invited him. No, I released him to move on to another opportunity. I didn't realize he's not a bad person, by the way. He's actually a smart guy. He's a nice guy. But you remember Grizzly Adams, the movie Grizzly Adams? He's like a living off the land man. Husband number 2's like that. And that never was my thing. And I didn't realize that's his thing. He really wanted that for me too. And I never was going to be Mrs. Grizzly Adams. No. He didn't, even though I said it, I don't think he realized. He was just like humoring me by going along with me saying, "Oh no, we're going to be living in this big house, and we're going to have nice cars that we don't have to keep push starting. We're going to have nice things." And I think he was just humoring me, not thinking that was ever going to happen. Right. And to me, it never was not going to happen. There was never a possibility that was not going to happen. It was just a matter of when. And by the way, it's always longer away than you're thinking. So that extra time I had to spend in the trailer park is longer than I was hoping for. but that's always going to be true, I think. And even now, I know whatever I'm doing for work now, whatever I'm doing to further my business or my career now, I'm not going to see any results at all possibly for at least 6 months, more likely even longer than that. I mean, I've had things that happened that didn't really benefit me for a couple of years. And but then I've had things happen that once it was a benefit, it's ongoing. And one of those things actually is, I was just telling somebody else's story. I hope you don't mind I say this one.
Certainly not.
I thought at the beginning, somebody said to me, if enough people know what you do, you can be successful in anything. And I've actually built my business on that knowledge. So it was like, I just need to get more people to know what I do. Yeah. So for a while I was thinking, if I do really good and sell a lot, Avon will feature me in their stuff, right? Yeah. Because I'll be doing good. And that doesn't happen. They don't just find you out of the blue. You have to stand out here and go, hey, I'm doing good over here. Look what I'm doing. Hey, and so I started sending out press releases. I started setting up my own interviews and stuff. I started writing articles for industry publications. I started doing the things that would get me noticed. I didn't sit here and say, well, if I do really good, they'll notice me, because it doesn't happen that way. But then once I did get one, like, I don't remember what the very first thing is, but I think one of the first, I got interviewed for a book called Dream Achievers. And once I got in that book, I bought a whole bunch of copies of it. I started selling the book. I started giving the book away to team members. I use that book. I have books of it still, because when that publisher went out, I bought all they had. Whenever I'm in anything, I do that. And then I use it. Because of something like that, I got in that. Then I got in Wave 4 by Richard Poe, because he saw Dream Achievers. So these things all add up. And then after that, I was featured in Avon's magazine finally, which was one of the things I thought would help me a lot. And it has. And it was called Dreams Magazine. And they did a whole big spread. They came out and everything and did a whole big photo shoot and all that. And I was also in their video called The Rich and Famous of Avon. And
I saw that. Man, it was so impressive. I'm like stalking out your YouTube. By the way, guys, you should check out her YouTube. I'm going to put it right here so that you can go ahead and take a look at it. I've been stalking that thing, all right? So I saw that. It was so impressive.
Well, and you know what? I still get people to join my team today. And this is like 2 decades later after the fact. After that happened, I still get people today that remember that or saw it somewhere and decide to do business with me somehow. They either buy from me or they join my team or whatever. But the more people that find out about it, and it just keeps going. So whenever I have the opportunity to be in something, I not only absolutely agree to do it, but then I make sure, because there were other people in that magazine that I talked to that didn't buy any extras. They didn't buy any extras of that magazine that they were featured in. I bought thousands, literally thousands of that magazine, because I knew when you go up to talk to somebody or meet somebody, I would give them out and I'd be like, you know what? I thought you might get a kick out of reading my story in this magazine. And they're like, oh my God, you were in a magazine. It gives you a level of credibility, even though it's probably not even deserved. You know what I mean? But you were in a magazine. Yeah. I want to show you this one. So one of the cars that I put signs on my cars, and one of them was a PT Cruiser. And this is the car itself. This is a picture of it. And I wrapped it like this because I saw a Coca-Cola wrapped PT Cruiser out in Las Vegas when I was on an Avon trip, and came home and wrapped this one. But if I'm going to spend that kind of money wrapping them, because they're a couple grand to do that, I was thinking how I could parlay that into getting more people to know what I do. Because having a car wrap out here in rural New Hampshire isn't necessarily going to see a lot of people. So I was subscribing to the PT Cruiser magazine because I had one, not for any other reason. And I thought, wouldn't that be awesome if I could somehow get in that thing? A whole bunch of people would get to find out what I do. that wouldn't have any contact with me before. It would be fresh new people.
Yeah.
And just 1 month, I read the editorial, and I didn't always read it. So it was hilarious that I happened to read it. And she was making fun of people trying to get on the cover. And she said, we're going to make it interesting and have an auction. Whoever bids the highest, I'm going to do a cover story and a big spread inside with pictures and stuff. Now, this is a car magazine. It's not like a lipstick magazine or a beauty magazine, but I didn't care because I knew it would have my story in it and pictures. So I wrote a big fat check for $5,000. And I'm on the cover of the magazine.
Yes.
Right? And you should see the spread in here. This was, I still use these today, and this was 2007. And this is inside, there's a whole big spread. They came out to my little town and took all these pictures, and my whole story's in here too.
Wow.
And I've given these out all over the place. Not only did I buy thousands at the time it came out, but when PT Cruises stopped being manufactured, that magazine stopped being for sale. And because I had bought thousands, that lady contacted me and she said, I have some leftover boxes in the warehouse. Do you want what I've got left for 50 cents each? Yes. Yes, I do. Send them all to me. And I still have, I think I'm working on my last couple boxes. But it's been fabulous. Even if it's old, it doesn't matter.
Yes.
You know what I mean? People are like, oh my God, you're on the cover of a magazine? That's awesome. It's a great talking piece, and anyone can do stuff like that. You know, it's looking for the opportunities and then just jumping on them.
Yes, because you mentioned that you were never about door knocking. That was just you. So you have always found different ways, other creative ways of getting in front of people. And
I'm an introvert. I found that out. And introvert doesn't mean that you can't be outgoing. It means that you get your energy from being alone. But it also means knocking doors is not something I'm. And over all these years, I've had many employees of the company and other companies and stuff tell me that I'd do better if I just made myself do it. And I'm like, I didn't get into being self-employed to make myself do stuff that I really don't want to do. That's not what I got in this for. So to me, it was a problem of, if I'm not willing to do that, then what can I do to get the same results or better?
Right.
So that's where I heard you can be successful at anything if enough people know what you do. And that directly conflicts with door knocking, in my opinion, because if I want a lot of people to know what I do, asking them one at a time seems a little random, doesn't it? So I mean, like I was looking around at what other businesses do, and I'm like, if I owned a restaurant, I wouldn't be like, excuse me, would you go to my restaurant tonight, one at a time, all around town? I wouldn't be doing that. I'd be doing stuff like a sign on my car.
Yeah.
Right. Or a sign in my yard, which I did too, or wear a button where I talk to a lot of people. When I'm just in my regular life going around, I do that too.
Right.
I do stuff or do a fair booth. I did those, a flea market booth. I do things where I'm going to get to see a lot of people. You know, I've done home shows. I didn't see how the door knocking was really going to, work. The one thing I always thought if enough people knew what I did, I would be successful, is how I heard that. Right. So when I first was going full time, I mistakenly asked the company how many Avon representatives were in my town. We're in New Hampshire. They said 15. And I thought to myself, oh, right. So either my two choices I figured were find something else to sell that not everyone's selling, or convince everybody in town I'm the only one. I went with option 2, by the way, especially when I found out most of the others weren't selling very much. So that was the key thing. It doesn't matter how many people are selling if they're not doing that much. So I said, how many of those 15 are President's Council, which is selling over 75,000 at that point? None of them. Matter of fact, there was only like 2 that were President's Club, which was at 10,000.
Mm.
So I'm like, oh, well, there's plenty of room for me then. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter what the other 14 are doing then. There's plenty of room for me. And I made sure I joined the chamber as Avon. I have Dr. Highway signs. I'm into stuff. And to me, it was always about, if you just randomly walked up to someone in my town and said, who sells Avon around here? I want them to say, Lisa Wilber sells Avon around here. She's the one. And I think that I do that. And I have proof. I have proof right here. I want to show.
Liking this video so far, go ahead and smash the like button. Also, leave me a comment in the comment section. And additionally, please ensure that you subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you're notified once a new video is released. Let's jump back into it.
And I have proof. I have proof right here. I want to show you. So when we lived in the trailer park, my second husband there, he builds sheds for money. That's what he does. Self-employed, and they're nice sheds, by the way, but his company is called W&W Buildings, so it doesn't have his last name on it, right? And this bill from the materials place came down for him, W&W Buildings, and the lady that bought our trailer from us wrote on here, no longer at this address, delivered to Avon Lady. So there's no last name on this at all. No first, no last name. They brought that letter to me. I'm the Avon Lady. Yeah. that to me is proof that what I'm doing is working. Because even, remember Miracle on 34th Street, even the post office recognizes that I am the Avon Lady.
Amazing. I love that. Right, guys, so you want to catch that piece of it. If enough people know what you do, you can be successful, right? So try and get as much people as possible to learn about what you're doing, right? I'm just soaking this in. I'm just absolutely loving it.
And it doesn't have to be that you're trying to sell them something or trying to sign them up. They just have to know what you do. And you don't have to be like in their face about it.
Right.
The most I do as far as sounding salesy is lots of times I'll say to someone when I meet him, are those Avon earrings? And they might, I actually usually know whether they are or not. It's just a conversation starter. Yeah. And if they say no, I say, they look like ones we used to sell a couple years back. Mm-hmm. So now the other person knows what I do. They know I sell Avon because I said we.
Yes.
And then almost always, it's like 9 times out of 10, the other person will tell me their Avon connection story. They'll say, oh, my aunt used to sell when I was a little girl, or my mom used to sell. They'll tell me or my first cologne was Sweet Honesty. They'll tell me their Avon story. And usually I don't have to do anything after that. They'll say, hey, do you happen to have a book on you? Or they'll say, I let it flow by itself. I don't say, I sell Avon, you want to buy from me? Yes. I don't have to do that. I just try to get a conversation going and let it go by itself. And if they don't want to talk, I'm good with that. I just talk to someone else.
Yeah. So guys, take something away from that. You need a creative conversation starter right there.
I mean, I've done some other ones like, I carry a hand cream, of course, in my purse. And sometimes I'll be sitting there and I'll want some on my own hands, and I'll just look at the lady behind me and go, did you know it's National Hand Cream Day? And I hold the tube out. And I've never had anyone go, they always do, and take the hand cream. And I mean, of course, National Hand Cream Day, I made that up. And it's multiple times because but I said, did you know it's National Hand Cream Day? And I just hold the tube out, and I swear to you, they just do this. And so it's just another way to talk to people. But I don't say, buy that hand cream from me. I think that's the mistake that a lot of people make, is they're not just trying to build a relationship. They're immediately trying to sell somebody something. Right. And most times it's not even that person that I talk to that ends up buying from me. Right. It's the person they knew that asked them, or, it's ancillary people around them I'm using that word right.
Right. Amazing, amazing. And that's one of the things that I'm always preaching about. Relationship building, right? Stop getting in front of people, and the very first thing you're trying to do is to get something from them, getting a sale or getting a sign up. Because I have that happen in my DMs pretty much every single day. Because I'm connecting with people, right? I'm connecting with people every single day, right? And these are persons who the very first thing they do, someone was pretty crafty today, right? I jumped into my DMs and she's like, hey, Chris, thank you so much for connecting. Something. I have an amazing gift for you. And she's sending me a link to something. Oh my girl.
Right.
But it's boom, it's right into it. No.
Yeah. And I think you have to be interested in them and find out what they do. And you know what I mean? That's how they're going to be interested in what you do, is you're interested in what they do. And I think it can't be with the expectation of getting a sale either. You know what I mean? You have to just meet people. And, you know, to me, because I'm a go-giver person, with Bob Berg and that. But have you read the book, The Go-Giver?
I have. My brother actually gifted it to me. Amazing content.
Yeah. He has a group of people called the Go-Giver Success Alliance that I'm in. And that I've been in that for a year. And I think you look at things a lot different. You know what I mean? So when I'm getting involved in something or I'm meeting somebody, I'm thinking to myself, I wonder if there's a way I can add value to this person or add value to this situation or this group that I'm volunteering for. If some of my skills or some of my resources would be useful to them instead of the other way around. And it ends up working out without me having to, I just throw out the giving, serving boomerang, and what I need comes back without me having to do anything. And I like that a lot better. So I'm not worried about who the person is that's going to buy from me, if it's going to be that person in front of me or not. I'm not worried about that. I'm just worried about how I can be of service and what I can provide. What do I have for resources that would work in this?
And that's coming from a higher level of awareness, right? Because that's actually a law. Right? The law of giving and receiving, reciprocity. When I learned that, I stopped approaching things the way I was approaching it too. But a lot of us are doing things out of ignorance. We just don't know. And so we think that it's all about this getting, and we don't realize that the giving is a prerequisite for the getting. When I learned that, I was like, okay, let me just go and give these people some good stuff, right? Because some amazing stuff are going to come back to me.
I think that everybody's got it drilled in their head about the return on investment, the ROI. They just think that there has to be one that you see that's measurable right away. Yep. And it's just not. One of the other things that I do, because I've always done side hustles and stuff, is send out cards. And their whole philosophy is the giving thing, which I love. But now that I'm in the Go-Giver 2, what I love is that I no longer think about, when I send a card, if that person might buy from me. It's not about that anymore. I just think about whether that person would like a card. So now it made it easier. So now when I'm scrolling through Facebook, I think, oh, I bet they'd like a picture of their dog on the front of a card. And I don't think, you know what, that person's not going to buy from me because they already do something, or I don't stop to analyze the whole situation. I only think about whether they'd like a card.
Yeah.
And it makes it so much easier. And it does end up working for my business. There's always some way it works out. Maybe not with that particular person, but it's certainly giving that out in the universe, it ends up working out.
Yeah, I can totally relate with that, because I had something very similar to that happening with me as well. I would connect with persons, and before I understood this, I would go, well, that person won't be able to contribute or buy from me or contribute to my business. And so let them go, right? But understanding now, I still try to serve them. Right? I have people reach out to me and say, Chris, can you take a look at my landing page? I know you're into marketing. Can you take a look at this? And can you take a look at that? And I'll say, sure, let me see the best time that I can look at this. And I look at it for you with nothing in the back of my head, with any expectation at all. And I'm just literally just serving them, because I've got the skill set. So I'm literally just serving them and saying, hey, you need to change this. You need to do this on the landing page. You need to do this. You need to do that. And sometimes it leads to them doing business, and sometimes and business comes, not necessarily from them sometimes, but it comes.
Yes.
So
And then it's such a better way to live anyway. Then you don't have to sit there and keep score about everything you're doing and every person you're meeting. And it's probably a much better experience to the other person too, because they're not feeling like you're analyzing them to see whether you're going to do business with them or not. I think it's just a much nicer way to live.
It's authentic.
Yeah.
They're authentic.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So big question for you, Lisa. If there were certain skill sets that you believe every network marketer needs to develop, what would you say some of these skill sets are?
Oh, skill sets. I don't think you necessarily have to be outgoing, but you do need to be able to interact with other people and put their interests above your own. You know what I mean? So meeting new people, interacting with them, and definitely the believe in yourself thing. I'm at the point, and I don't mean it I'm at the point where I don't think as much about, like, even if everything shut down, I'm thinking to myself, I have the skills to do something. I could buy something, mark it up and sell it. I know how this works. So I could generate income one way or another. So I no longer believe that I could end up destitute. You know what I mean? I don't think that's possible because I would think my way out of it. I think I have the skills to do that. And I think you have to start working on that belief in yourself, that you're not always running from being destitute, because I was doing that. I was doing that for a long time. But now it's more like I'm working on the game of how much can I earn in the smallest amount of time with my skill set. And if that means increasing my skills or finding out that I have skills that I didn't know, or, you know what I mean? However that works, that's what I'm going to do. It's more like that rather than trying to avoid being destitute. Because that was unpleasant being that poor. And I'm not interested in participating in that again. And now I don't feel like I'm going to need to do that, because I think that I've worked up my skills so that I'm going to be able to. So working on your skills all the time. I go to seminars and stuff all the time still. My main money earner, of course, is Avon, but I do other things, and I'm distributor for other companies. And one of the main reasons is I love our industry. And so anything that I want to buy within our industry. And lots of times it's just cheaper to be a distributor. Yeah. And then you have access to their training. So I go to other people's conventions on a regular basis. Because they always have. Matter of fact, one of the ones that I love doing is called My Daily Choice. I've been to their conventions, I think, 3 times. The one in 2019, I only paid, I don't even remember what I paid to go, maybe $100 to go to their convention. Guess who they had for their keynote speakers?
I don't know.
Bob Proctor and Les Brown.
Man.
The both of them. I sat in a room. I sat there listening to Bob Proctor and Les Brown live at their convention just because I was willing to go and I was affiliate. So all of these companies have really great training programs, most of them. And so I tap into all that, and they're great side hustles for me. So to me, it's important to think outside of your own company bubble, because every company has their own training thing, which is awesome. You should do it, but you should definitely make sure you're going outside of your industry. I take classes for people that are in real estate because it opens me up. Like, I never would have thought to do the car because no one else in Avon, at least, wasn't doing that when I first did that. And I found out lately that hardly anyone does it even now, all these years later in our industry. And I wouldn't have thought about it if I hadn't seen the Coca-Cola PT Cruiser. So I think you have to be open to looking at what other, outside your industry is doing, and be willing to learn all the time.
Yeah.
So that was a big, long explanation for what you asked me.
I think they were able to grab some pieces from that, because the piece for me, I would have thought about even popping into the trainings and conventions for other companies.
Oh yeah, I love doing that.
Thought of that,
Yeah.
right? But that's so powerful, because
it is a little humbling though. I'll tell you, because I went to the send out cards one, and of course when I go to an Avon one, I've been in their stuff and I'm in the top for decades. So when I go to an Avon convention, it's even hard to move around. People want to stop me and get pictures and stuff, which is awesome. That's part of the job. It's awesome. But when I go to another companies, of course, nobody knows nor cares who I am. So it's humbling. And it's funny because I've had all these wild experiences within Avon because of where I am in the, in the pecking order thing. When I went to the send out cards one, I happened to have a team enough that I got to walk across stage, and I forget what they called it, the advanced leader or something. And it was a small title, right? And you got to go on stage and shake hands with the top ones. Mm-hmm. And so I did it. And matter of fact, my kid went with me, and my kid was maybe 5 at the time. And then when we came and sat back down, this lady sitting next to me said, "Isn't that the most exciting thing that's ever happened to you?" And I got to shake hands with, in send out cards, they call the top people the Eagles. And I wanted to say, I'm an Eagle somewhere else. You know what I mean? I just went, yes, it was so exciting. I mean, it was exciting, but I love the experience. So every company has a different training thing. Everybody has a different excitement. And I love going to all the other ones. And I don't know if that's a no thing to do or not, but I love doing it because it opens my eyes to other ideas. I get to meet other people and see what they're doing. And I always am thinking, well, maybe there's a way I could do this for my core business, which is Avon. Maybe there's some way, and it turns out doing send out cards, I've sent 75,000 cards in the last 12 years, 75,000. And I honestly think there's no way I'd be making the money that I make if I hadn't had that kind of card sending, you know what I mean? Because I send cards. I thank my customers every time they buy from me, my team members. I do recognition. I do birthdays like crazy. And I think that has so helped my core business.
Right.
So it's been a help, and it's, I get to go to their training and stuff. Right. So I think finding other things to do that can also feed into your core business.
Right. Right. So it's opening up your awareness about what is out there and pulling from those things to plug into. Yeah.
Well, and I think it's worth mentioning that, yes, I do more than one thing. But I did make a conscious decision of which one was going to be my core business. So I don't sign up for things that are direct conflicting of that. For example, I wouldn't sell Mary Kay and Avon together because they're too close. It would be a conflict, right? So if I'm going to add something, usually it's something that feeds into it or something I use anyway that we don't sell, something like that. And I think you do have to decide on which one is going to be your core. Yeah, because when it's all said and done, you want one, you're not necessarily going to be making it at the top of the pay plan for 5 of them. So you want to pick which one you're going to concentrate on. And
because I was going to have that question for you, because I've met a lot of persons who are with multiple companies, but they're sort of struggling with all of them. And in my head, I'm thinking, so why don't you just focus on one of these and let one sort of take off for you, and then you can look at other stuff. But that has always sort of been my head.
That's why I wanted to say that, because I do see a lot of people doing that. And I'm afraid that they're doing it from my example. And they've got to realize that I made it to the top of the pay plan prior to adding those things.
Thank you for saying that.
And, the only one I think would be the different would be send out cards. I did make it before that, but on a service like that, that's a card sending service, is a little bit different than if I sold another product. I'm already using it to build my business. So if it's not something like that, like a service, like one of the other ones I do is called Shuffle. It's a business card app. It's a business card. So that feeds into my regular core business. But I think you do need to find which one is the one that's you're going to call your core, your main money earner. And the other stuff has to rotate around that like it's the sun. Yeah. So you have to protect the sun at all costs. Protect that one and feed into that one. So it's okay to do other stuff, but make it to the top of the pay plan in your core business.
You heard that last part right there? Make it to the top of your core business before you start looking for all of these things, because I'm always seeing it. Yeah. I'm seeing it all the time because I'm interacting with persons in the industry and they're literally struggling. And I'm like, so why don't you? And a lot of them, you can't even talk to them. Some are not very coachable. Some
well, if you say which is the one,
say it for them.
Which is your main one, they don't even know which is their main one, and that's a problem. You should, in my opinion, you should know which is your main money earner. Yeah, and the rest of it you can still do and be in their training and still have fun with it and all that stuff. But if you don't know what the main one is, it won't be the main one. There won't be a main one. Yeah, if you don't know what it is, you've got to pick. What's the best fit for you? Yeah. And it doesn't, to me, it doesn't have to be that you have some big giant love of all the products. You could, for example, I'm not a big giant makeup wearer. I've got some on today because we're doing something. In normal life, not so much, right? I'm not known for being a makeup wearer, but Avon doesn't just sell makeup. The thing that I've sold the most in the last 40 years that I've been with Avon is deodorant. I've sold a boatload of roll-on deodorant, and I intentionally focused on that because I thought to myself, even when the economy is bad, you got to be pretty broke before you're not putting on deodorant. You know what I mean? I'm buying that $2 deodorant. I got to be pretty broke before I'm not doing that. Yeah. So I counted on that all this time, and people gave me a hard time and said, you ought to get more into the makeup and all that stuff. But I'm happily out there still selling the deodorant. Yeah. So it doesn't matter if you want to focus on one or two products on the company's line, no matter which company you're with. As long as you can make it to the top of the pay plan doing that, go for it. Do you. You do you, boo.
I love it. All right. So any final word of encouragement for someone who might be brand spanking new to the industry or might just be struggling in the industry? What do you want to leave with them?
I think the struggle is part of the process. So don't hate the struggle. Don't quit over the struggle. Absolutely not. It takes a certain breed of person to work for yourself. So not everybody's going to be able to do that. So I think you have to just, be of service the best you can, give the best value you can to your customers and to your team members, and just don't give up no matter what. If this is what your real dream is, that you have the flexibility and the money that you want, just find a way to make it work and don't ever give up. And it's funny, all these years I've been in, the one constant has been me. There's been corporate people come and go, and actually Avon US got sold a couple times. So we're owned by somebody different from when I started. I'm the constant, and that's okay. You know what I mean? I can adapt to the other people, even the representatives. I know maybe 2 or 3 that have been in as long as me. And it's just, I'm the one that's going to stick it out. I've made that decision. So you be the one that sticks it out and doesn't give up and keeps working it. And it's a lifestyle that you just can't imagine. I'm here. I was able to adopt a family member as an infant at 42, and they never even blinked an eye that I was 42 because of my income from Avon. And I had my own house, my own car. And I mean, all of that, I've earned over 40 all expense paid trips. We just got back from Hawaii. I mean, all of that would not have been possible had I even contemplated giving up. It never was going to, I never was going to give up. It just was never going to be give up situation.
I absolutely
so keep
love
after it.
Yes, keep after it, guys. Lisa, again, you are just pouring into my soul. Right? I know the others who are watching this, you are speaking to their souls as well. Right? I just take so much from you. Like I said, I'm constantly just checking out your stuff, right? Just talking out the stuff, because trust me, if you hang around amazing people, it is said that we're the average of the people that we spend most of our times with. And I'm happy that I got the chance to spend with you today. So guys, you guys get to see the amazingness of all of this, but this is just amazing for me to be able to interact with you and to just get this information firsthand. I feel like I get the most of this, right? Because I edit these videos myself, right? I don't even want to pass it on to somebody else, because I get to rewatch and I get to get the info all over again. And even when I upload it, I'm watching again. Right? I just get so much from this. And I'm just so grateful that you took the time again.
Well, thank you. I consider it an opportunity and I appreciate that.
I absolutely love it. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you guys on the next one. Until next time.